Today I am going to discuss to you with the history of insurance in India. Friends, we see that two major questions are going to be asked in this area or from this part. One is they may ask you saying that state the development of the insurance in India or Insurance Act in India, or they may separately ask you with stating that state the development of the life insurance in India. Any of these two questions can be asked with. Generally they will be asking on these two parts, but apart of this they may also ask you with the other question like history of marine insurance or history of fire insurance, but we will concentrate more on these two areas. Friends, when you go with the history of insurance in India, or other way, if you look down, how did this history develop? How did this insurance develop? Because we always have a saying, you would also be knowing with this. History always speaks with the future. That is, what the experiences that we have gained from the past, if adopted and taking that to overcome such difficulties, what was being faced by the past, it helps us to go with a better development with the insurance sector for the future days. That's why it has become important to understand with the history. See, if you look down as how did this insurance came in, or how did this practice of insurance was being made in India, if you look, or in Indian scenario, if you look, way back in 1000 BC AD itself, we shall see that the Aryans, the kings of Aryans, had a practice of doing or carrying out an insurance, especially where the traders used to go for trade on the overseas, a marine insurance we otherwise say. They were required to take up an insurance, or a kind of a risk was being taken up by the kings of those days. But otherwise than this also, if you take the system of family that is in India, that is prevalent in India right from those days to even today, if you look in, we have a very particular form of family system called as joint Hindu family system. And if you closely look up with the joint Hindu family system, this joint Hindu family system is a kind of insurance which is being provided from one person to that of another person. That is, suppose in a family if we are 10 or 20 or 100 in number, then each member is owing a responsibility to undertake the risk of the other member of the family, that is the other member of the joint family concern. So it is a form of social security given to the member of that Hindu joint family. It's something reveals, or it speaks something with the insurance itself. So in this manner, if you look outward, we see that insurance, though did not call it to be as an insurance, but the social security was provided among the joint family system concerned. So we shall say that this could be a way wherein the evolvement of insurance could have developed with. And to put a small example, suppose say if a niece of mine or a cousin of mine, if his son or if his father or if his mother or grandpa, if somebody dies with, he would be taken care of by the other joint family members. So a kind of security is being provided among the members of the joint family. But it has become so fashionable for us to go down and always look down to the European development or Western development, because all our laws what we read today even speaks with this. It says that, where did you get this law? Because of course the law of natural principles, the law of equity principles might be followed from England, or it could be come up from the Western countries. But still, we shall see that Indians do have a procedure, but we would have not named it particular. That is the only drawback that which we are coming across with. But as it has become a tradition for us to go with that of the European culture, that is European or Western concept, let us also look down how did this concept of insurance develop with. Friends, when it comes to the development and the consensus of the insurance or the understanding of insurance, I can say you that way back in 2250 BC itself, the concept of insurance, though it was not called again as an insurance, but the concept of insurance was being made out with. And you would be aware of this, that King Hammurabi, where during the Babylonian period or Babylonian time, King Hammurabi in fact had developed a code in respect of the insurance issues are concerned. In fact, the code of law which has developed by him said that it specifically stated with certain rules in it, which gave out governing the practices of risk sharing activities. In fact, it said that is, if anybody, in fact the code dictated saying like this, if any trader who is to trade on the overseas and incurs a loss because of the pirates, or because of the loss of the property, or because of any damage to that of the property, then the financiers was not allowed, in such cases the financiers was not allowed to claim for the money of which they have been financed out with. So the code dictated saying like this, that is, if a person incurs a loss by an unnatural events or untowards event, then such person should not be called to pay out the debts, and the debts what has been given by the person should be cancelled. That's what the King Hammurabi said, that which has a significant influence of the insurance in India. In fact, it said that the same practices, if you look in, even that we can find in 1250 BC, 1200 BC, not 1250, 1200 BC we see. And that is in the place of Botmari, that is in the Phoenicia areas, Botmari was a system which was prevailed. They also had the same practices of what King Hammurabi had in his code, saying that is, if any person dies, if any person is going to lose or cause a damages, or if there is a loss to that of his financial activities, then the same should not be claimed by any other person. He should be, that is, the debt of the person should be cancelled, and he should be given with a right of indemnity for the loss what has been occurred with. So this was the concept which has been developed. But my friends, by 14th century, if you look down, in fact it speaks about with the life insurance. In 14th century, the Greeks and Romans has developed a life insurance concept. And in fact, this Greeks and Roman formed a society of their own. They formed their own societies, wherein if any person who comes and falls under this society, or if he is a member of this society, then he should be compensated in case of death. It says that is, if a death occurs with any one of the member of the society, that is, who have already been a member of the society, in case of death of that person, the society, that is, the society which they have formed themselves, should pay certain amount to that of the person, that is the deceased person, for his funeral expenses, and also the debt what if he had, which he had in, to pay about maybe to paying of the dues should be compensated, and the dues should be cancelled, and also the living expenses of their family member, that is the dependents of this family members should be paid with certain expenses, which they called it as living expenses to the person. So this is a kind where we see that there was some kind of risk sharing activities by the members of the society, or by the group of people which we can come across with. And later on, if you look at with the 15th century, that is what we call it as Middle Ages period. In fact, during the Middle Ages period, it extended to the working agencies. It extended to the working areas. See, it is not only the family there, but also where if a person are employed together in one factory or one industry or a group of area, that is a group of sector, these persons should also be equally given a kind of protection to when they are at the work. So what is this people do? What is this workers do was that they formed a group among themselves, and they made a restriction, or I can say that they imposed a condition among themselves, or they came out with the rules something like this, saying that if any of a group member, if any of the worker, if he incurs a loss in respect of any of the work at the time of work what is doing, then the other group member should undertake the risk of what has been caused to that of a person. Suppose say, if an employee, a worker, if it dies there, if it dies at the course of his work, then the group member came together paying certain money to them in order to compensate the workers what they have been done with. So we shall see that we had a form of practices among the workers in the Middle Ages also, where the workers themselves came out with a form of undertaking the risk among the workers or group of workers among themselves. This was prevalent in the 15th century AD. But as we know today, what an insurance is was prevailed from the 17th century. Of course, this 16th century we don't have much changes, for the reason that this continued as it is, that is, they continued to have this same kind of practices of which the insurance was being followed. But literally to speak with, the current system of insurance, as I then said to you, as we understand what an insurance, as we know what an insurance in fact had taken place in the 17th century, which it said, that is in England, which William Gibbons was a person who made an application to the Queen of that day to undertake the insurance for his life. So he was the first person to come up with saying that my life has to be protected, and for my life there should be some kind of a person who should undertake the risk somewhere in the year 1633. He said that is, I should be protected, my life has to be protected. In that respect, you have to give me an insurance. That was on June 18, 1633. He took an insurance policy from that of the Queen for the purpose of an insurance. So this is how we see the very first concept of insurance in its true sense was brought somewhere in the 17th century AD. And this was developed. See, in fact, if you would have come across with the Lloyd's Bank or Lloyd's Coffee House. See, there was a practice in England. That is, there was a big coffee house, Lloyd's, called as Lloyd's Coffee House. Edward Lloyd who had come up with this coffee house. And in this coffee house, many merchants used to come in the evening. They used to sit together. They used to have a good coffee there and started discussing with their trading activities. And to some extent, they also undertook the risk of one person when he is on voyage and the person who was on the offshores. So this had become a practice, and people used to come there, that is, the traders used to come there, sit in the coffee house, that is in the Lloyd's Coffee House, just to discuss the business activities and to undertake the risk of one person over that of the another. And this became very popular of those days. And as a result of this, my friends, this Lloyd, as he was basically a businessman, mentally business in his mind, he came out with an act called as Lloyd's Act of 1871, which was saying that is, these persons can have an insurance sector. So he formed out an incorporation, that is, an association was being formed, and it was registered in the form of a company. And more particularly, this Lloyd's, what it did was that he came out with the marine insurance then. So under this act, he said that is, marine insurance can be taken up with the Lloyd's, that is coffee house, who was also started with the insurance business sector. And as I then said, as I then said to you, insurance in fact started with that of the marine insurance as we understand today. And in 18th century, my friends, Lord Mansfield, who was an eminent jurist on the area, who was the Chief Justice of that days, opened the courts to take up an insurance, who take up the insurance issues on the basis of the insurance contract. So from 18th century, we shall see that insurance started to develop even to an extent, and it came down to the courts for its settlement also. So this is just a small scenario of a Western contribution to that of the insurance sector. And if you look at with the Indian scenario, how did this insurance that was prevailed in India, of course, to just add on from the words that what I had it in the beginning. In fact, if you look upon our joint family system, the Aryans who had a practices of having carried out the insurance in the area of marine. But much before than this, if you can look out, the Rig Veda in fact spoke upon with this. We have a statement in Rig Veda calling it to be as Yoga Kshema Bhamyamam. See, when you say Yogakshema Bhamyaham, it says that is a life of a person is nowhere less to any people. That is, it is nowhere less to every individual. So there should be more or less a kind of security should be given to every individual. When I say Yogakshema Bhamyam, the paramount right that what one person would have is that I should have a right of security. I should have a right of security for myself. I should have a security for that of my family members. So, in fact, this words, in fact, spoke upon with the concept of the insurance issues are concerned. And as I then said, 1000 BC itself, we see that the Aryans have come up with this concept of insurance. But if you look at with the recent development by past 2 centuries development in India, we can say that life insurance was first set up in the India by the Britishers. It was so unfortunate, even though it was set up by Britishers. I would say why it was so unfortunate is for the reason that, my friends, way back in the 1818 itself, the Britishers came out with the insurance in India, calling it to be as a Oriental Life Insurance Company, then followed by the Bombay Mutual Life Insurance Company in the year 1871. In fact, they called it as Society Insurance Society. They called it as Bombay Mutual Life Insurance Society, 1871. And the other one is Life Assurance Act, Life Assurance, that is 1874. So during this period, we come across with an insurance sector in India. Why I said it is so unfortunate, for the reason that, my friends, though we see that insurance companies have come up in India, these companies were only catering the British people in India. The Indians or the native of Indians were not allowed to have an insurance in these companies. It was only catering to that of the Britishers and never admitted the lives of any Indians in India. That is the reason why I said it was so unfortunate. Not only with the life insurance I am speaking, my friends, even with the general insurances I can say. Till 1850 there was no general insurances in India. It was only in the 1850 the first general insurance was being brought in. Which, in fact, though it was being brought in, it was having no regulation of its own. The first general insurance was Toronto Insurance Company, was formed in Calcutta in 1815 by the Britishers, just to again to cater the people who have migrated from England to India. That is for the British colonies it had with. But the real start of the entire insurance business organization came up from a movement that has developed in India, that is during the independence period, Be India by India, which we popularly call it as Swadeshi movement, which came out saying that is Be India by India, what we now say, like unlike our Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks it, Make in India movement he has come up with. On those days we see that Be India by India, that is to buy only the products of India, gave way for several industries to come up with, that is indigenous industries to come out with. And to cater upon with these indigenous industries, insurance have also started with. Insurance sectors have also started with to cater the needs of the people of this India. And as a result of this, my friends, the first local company in respect of Indian insurance is Indian Mercantile Insurance Company, that which was established in the year 1907 in Bombay. This was the first insurance company which came up for the protection of the people of this country. And again in the year 1912, 2 sets of legislation was brought in. 2 sets of legislation. That is, one legislation is the Life Assurance Companies Act. Life Assurance Companies Act. I am repeating this. This mainly targeted upon the insurance sector, whether it is a life insurance or whether it is a general insurance. Irrespective of that, it mainly targeted with the life assurance, that is with the insurance sector. The second legislation was with the Provident Insurance Societies Act, like pension plan, unemployees plans, all this comes under this. So these were the 2 major concerns of the legislation that was being passed in the year 1912. But unfortunate is again here is that this ignored the general insurance business of the government. The government completely ignored the general insurances and concentrated only on the pension plans and the life insurance business of India. So this is how we see generally, if you look upon with this, and this continued for several time, which made upon with. Then later on, my friends, till 1938 we did not have any insurance enactment. Legislation was not there. But only in the year 1938, the birth of new insurance act come in. That is why we still say that the noteworthy development in the legislation of insurance sector is the birth of the Insurance Act of 1930. This was a comprehensive legislation which was being brought in India, which covered both the general insurances and life insurance. It covered both the things, and it's clearly defined what is fire insurance, what is marine insurance, what is life insurance, etc., etc. Different parts of insurance. It clearly defined with this. What are all these? Because till then we did not have any separate classes of these insurances. Everything which we used to consider as one insurance. There was no classification. But this enactment gave out a split of all these things and said that life is different, fire is different, and marine insurance is different. And it also defined what is life, what is fire, and what is marine insurances. A part of this insurance, that is this enactment, covered various legislation covering this. It gave out various rules and regulation in its legislation, like what is a deposit called, how deposits can be made, what are the restriction has to the supervision of insurance companies, that is what are the regulating bodies for this, investments, how investments can be made, what shall be the commission payable to that of the agent. Likewise, several factors was being brought in the Act of 1938. I'll be discussing separately with 1938. That is the basic classes of 1938 I'll be discussing in my coming slides also. So it was in fact, as I was then saying you, when the Act of 1938 was passed in India, the entire insurance sector was transferred from the Department of Commerce to that of the Department of Finance. I was saying to you that if you just undertake or if you just look down the GDP's contribution from the insurance sector, that is why it is now considered so important for us all, is that I can say you that if you take the entire financial sector, it may come around 20 to 29% of GDP is a contribution given by the country to, GDP contribution from this business to the GDP of the country. But if you now literally take from that of the insurance, nearly to the 7% of the GDP is a contribution given from the insurance company. So this has become more important. It has made us more important to understand why this insurance has been so popular for us today. So after independence, we can see that is all this has developed, and because of this birth of Insurance Act of 1938, we see the insurance was being transferred, that is from the Ministry of Commerce, it was transferred to the Ministry of Finance, and today finance holds this area. And after the independence, that is after 1947, we also see there was a greater development which has been taken place in the insurance sector, that is by nationalization of the insurance in India. It gave a greater role to play in the area of insurance. In fact, the finance minister, when he announced for the nationalization of Life Insurance Corporation in the year 1956, giving a monopoly to LIC, there were 200 companies it was functioning. All these 200 companies was brought within the ambit of LIC. It was taken over by LIC. It came down to LIC, and LIC had a monopoly over the life insurance business when in the year 1956. And why this nationalization was being brought in is for the reason that the government in fact wanted to have a channel of resources for the national development program. In fact, they wanted to have this. That is, if you can pull out and bring out, unlike now we have several banks are getting merged within one company and it is becoming a giant banking sector. The same way they also expected then. So the thinking of the Indian framework is not had changed. It is just dropping in a different scenario, I can say you with this. But still, when it comes to the insurance sector, I can say you like this, my friends, That is, they came out saying that all these 200 companies should be brought in and made it into as one, and all these 200 companies was brought within the ambit or under the umbrella of LIC, and LIC had a monopoly over all this. That is, they wanted to have a channel of resources for the national development, as I then said, and they also wanted to have an increase in the insurance market through nationalization. They thought that if I can nationalize all this and bring into the one, that there would be an increase in the market, so that the market would go up. Because by then, my friends, we shall see that the insurance was not confined only to the cities, but it has also extended its hands to the rural areas, which the more people were dependent on it. And another thing, important thing that we see is that by then there were a number of failures by the insurance company, because of the reason that there was a mismanagement in the company, or they did not follow to the terms, or they did not abide with the rules and regulations that is being imposed under the act. So in order to overcome with all these things, that is to provide a protection to that of the policy holders, we shall see that the insurance was nationalized and it was being brought in. But even in the year 1956, when LIC was nationalized, it was so unfortunate the government did not think about nationalizing of the general insurance. But after about 16 years later, after having nationalized the Life Insurance Corporation, that is LIC, then thought that, yes, why don't we also get into a nationalization of this general insurance. So 16 years later, of course the movement started somewhere in the year 1969 itself, 1969, 70, 71. But in the year 1972, the non-life sector, what I was then saying in my previous slide, the non-life sector was also got nationalized. And at the time of nationalization, that is in the year 1972, when the government proceeded for nationalization, there were 107 companies which was in existence who wanted to have a nationalization of this business. In fact, if you look closely with this, all these general insurances, as I then said, was only catering to the cities. That is, they were city oriented. But after nationalization, we see that this has extended even to the other areas also, to the other rural areas also. And in fact, by way of nationalization, we shall see that there were 4 subsidiary companies was formed in. That is, the one ambit or under an umbrella of GIC, General Insurance Corporation, they call it. Under General Insurance Corporation, one umbrella was being framed. Under General Insurance, there were 4 subsidiary companies was brought in, and these 4 subsidiaries company was something a national insurance company. That is National Insurance Company, which is the oldest company in the country. Which is the oldest company. First is National Insurance Company. The second one is the New India Insurance Company, or it is not insurance, Assurance Company, New India Assurance Company, Oriental Insurance Company, and United Indian Insurance Company. All this you know, today also they are in existence. I repeat this, one is National Insurance Company, which is the oldest one. The second one is the New India Assurance Company, and the third one is the Oriental Insurance Company, and the fourth one is the United Indian Insurance Company. These were the 4 subsidiary companies of GIC, and they were popularly called as now. They are popularly, you see, look at this, National Insurance, Oriental Insurance, United Insurance, and also National Assurance Company Limited. So they are popularly called it as now, or generally they were called as now. So these 4 companies were within the ambit of GIC, General Insurance Company. And General Insurance Company was considered to be as a holding company of all these 4 companies. And these were only a subsidiary to that of this company. So that was the scenario here. But in the year 1993, a Malhotra committee was being formed to revamp out the whole insurance of the Act of 1938. Though it was a beautiful legislation which we had, because there was a huge development which has been taken place with. In that scenario, or in that of that reason, they thought of bringing changes into the insurance, and the government thought of bringing changes into the Insurance Act. And a Malhotra committee was being formed in this regard. And this Malhotra committee gave a recommendation, or he strongly recommended, saying that GIC should no more be an holding committee. He said that GIC should be made as a separate body, and all those 4 subsidiary subsidiary companies which were as should be taken out from this, and independence should be given to those companies. And one another major feature of this Malhotra committee is this, my friends. this Malhotra committee said that GIC cannot henceforth carry out the insurance activities, but they should only be carrying out as an reinsurance. Only with respect to the reinsurance they can carry upon. So today, if I am to speak with which is the company which is doing a reinsurance business in India, I can only say it is General Insurance Corporation is the only company which is doing the reinsurance business in India. And this, in fact, as I then said, Malhotra committee strongly recommended with this and said that GIC should only carry a reinsurance, and it should be no more considered to be as a holding company. And in fact, all these companies should be given an independency with that of their business what is concerned. And in his report, he also pointed out certain important things. Those were, it said that the government stake in each, though it is a government company, all this we call today it as a government company, but still he said that in his report he made it man saying this, strongly recommended saying this, the government stake in a company was reduced from to an extent of 50%. So then it was 100%, a private participation was given to this, and said if your company is to be a government company, any of these companies, then the government can reduce its contribution in that, private should be given should be allowed to have their contribution in this. This is one major changes which has been taken place. The second one is that greater freedom was being given to these companies to operate with. So as it was no more a subsidiary to that of the company of GIC, a greater freedom was being given to this. And another major development of his report was this: the private company, at least with the minimum of $1 billion should be allowed to get into this industry. Suppose if a private company wants to participate, then they should have at least $1 billion, whether it is a foreign company or Indian company, whatever it is. He made it as in his report stating this. And he also said that no company shall deal with both life and non-life insurance. That's why, my friends, today we see that if a company is dealing with a life insurance business, then that company cannot deal with the non-life insurance business. It cannot deal with. That is, a single entity, that is a single company which is incorporated cannot carry both these two kinds of insurances. If I am to carry the general insurance, then I am no way to carry the life insurance. So that was the outcome of the report of this Malhotra committee. He said that if one single entity cannot carry both the kinds of these insurances, that is both life and non-life insurances. And in his report, he strongly recommended for the foreign contribution. That is, foreign contribution should be allowed. That is, any company, if it wants to have its business to be, that is in collaboration with the foreign company, then any foreign company can come in, tie up with the domestic company and carry upon its business. Like something like we have Ingvaisha or Birla Life Insurance, so on and so forth. We have many number of companies. So all this is because of the report. Apart of this, another major advantage by the report of Malhotra was that he also recognized postal life insurance and said that if you want to reach each and every corner of the rural area, that is, if the insurance sector's wing has to be extended to each and every rural areas, that is even to the remote areas of the rural areas, then it can only be possible by way of allowing the post offices to carry upon this business. And today that's how we see, even today post offices are offering for an insurance in their sector. So postal life insurance has become so popular. And he also, apart of the insurance sector, he also strongly recommended with a body. That is, the act should be changed and there should be a regulatory body which should be set up to look after with the insurance activities, and the entire control of all the insurance agencies should be given to the controller of insurance. That is, though now it is a part of finance, but still his recommendation was it should be given to the hands of the controller who could monitor upon all this insurance sector, and each should be made as an independent one. As a result of this Malhotra committee, today we see that the act of IRDA has come in. That is, by the end of 1999, IRA was brought in. The Insurance Regulatory Authority was being brought in. That is, just this was brought in order to liberalize in the area of insurance sector. So on 7th December 1999, it was being passed, called as IRDA Act 1999, and this was replaced. In fact, it replaced the monopoly of LIC, because till then LIC had a monopoly in all these areas. That's what we call it as privatization era. That is, we say after 2000. That is the monopoly of which LIC had in the life insurance area, which said that no other companies can come forward for issuing an insurance in the area of life. That was the restriction which was been. This was taken away by passing an IRDA Act, and we see that the monopoly was taken, and even the private participants was also been allowed to have an insurance sector in India. That is, this IRDA was formed to regulate, to promote, and to ensure the orderly growth of the insurance sector or insurance industries. This was being passed, and again, my friends, we see one more act was being passed in this regard. That is the General Insurance Nationalization, Business Nationalization Amendment Act 2002. That was on March 21, 2002. It was brought in, which said that GIC is, though it was called as an, that is, here I am speaking, JC, though it was called as an holding company, but the ownership should vest in the government of India. And this is how, my friends, we shall see after 2000 as such, we shall see that insurance has become a class, or insurance as was thrown open to the private sector, private institution, and today now we see that several such private institutions have come forward in issuing an insurance to the public of India. So this is how, my friends, we shall see that insurance has developed with. And if the question is asked, like, state the development of insurance in India, then you are supposed to go with all these things as such. But if the question is asked particularly to a particularly to a specific area, like what is the development of marine insurance, what is the development in cases of life insurance, how the development has taken place in fire insurance and the other insurance, then we have to go on a separate area. That is, just introducing this as a part, living upon with these two parts, you can straight away come down to the specific area. One is how it was taken in case of marine insurance, how it was taken in case of life insurance, and how the development has taken place in case of marine insurance. So these three things we are supposed to go with. Now, on the basis of what the development has taken place in all these areas, let us understand how is this development taken place in case of marine, sorry, I have written again here marine, fire insurance. Fire insurance, maybe I might be jumbling with this, sorry for that, but still, when you look at the development of these insurances in India, taking this as a base both in Western countries and also as well as in India, then we shall be speaking to how the development has taken place in marine insurance. I was saying you this. See, way back in 1000 BC itself, Arians, the king of Arians, had come up with the concept of marine insurances, because those traders who used to trade on overseas were given an opportunity to have an insurance, a kind of risk undertaking by among the king of those days. So that was there. But if you look upon how did this insurance develop? The oldest form of insurance that is being recognized in the area of commercial activities, that is in the area of insurance sector, that is under the common law, is in the 14th century. That is where the Italian merchants who in fact undertook the marine risk, especially where the ship was to go under loss, or where the cargo was to be displaced with, or the cargo was to be damaged with. It was quite a common factor, common picture which they used to come across with, because the Italian merchants used to have, when they were used to overtrade on the seas, they used to come that ship was to be lost, or where on the other hand the cargoes was to be damaged, or cargoes used to be lost because of the sea perils. So several factors was there. So all these factors led to the Italian merchants, or instigated the Italian merchants to come up with the practice of marine insurances. So it was somewhere in the 14th century BC, the concept of marine insurance was brought in, and this dominated in the insurance sector for several years. For many years, this dominated with. In 16th century, in fact, the group of merchants came together. See, till then it was commonly to everyone, but in 16th century, a group of merchants came and made themselves as a group. And these merchants, in fact, agreed to bear the losses of each other in cases of marine perils are concerned. So, that gave a way for a concept of giving a risk, or concept of undertaking the risk on among the members. That's how we see also today. See, when a company comes into an existence, that is when an insurance company comes into an existence, it is another thing but an association. When I say company, it is an association. This association, in a way, it undertakes to take the risk and indemnify the loss caused to by any of its member. The same was taken there. That is, in 16th century, the same merchants, they formed themselves into a group and undertook that. They entered into an agreement to undertake the risk that what one would take in the cases of marine perils. And this common law, in fact, in this area, played a greater role in bringing a regulation concerning the insurance as that. And the first insurance legislation under common law was in the year 1601. In the year 1601. That is, for the first time, the Statute of Chamber came up with an assurance saying that a law should be brought in this regard and it should be recognized with, and said that there should be some principles which has to be framed for the purpose of bringing an insurance sector, or for having taking the policy. Now today we call it as policy. For having taken the policy, certain regulation has to be framed with, and they made out their own regulation in this. But the drawback of this regulation was also this, that is 1601 regulation is also that this was kept outside the legal ambit of, or the legal system of the insurance sector. It said that is, it was no more a practice of legal system of the prevalent days, until and unless when Lord Mansfield, as I then said, Lord Mansfield, who came up in the 18th century saying that this should be brought in the courts room and it should be decided in the courts room with respect to the insurance contract as concerned. That is, if there is any dispute arises in respect of insurance, because it was outside the legal system till then. But it said that if any dispute arises in respect of this or in factors of this insurance area, then it should be brought to that of the courtrooms and it should be decided in the courtrooms of that area. This was the gift given by Lord Mansfield, an eminent jurist on this area. But before this also we see, as I said, the Insurance Act of 1963 was passed in the Lloyd's House, that is Lloyd's Coffee House. This story also, or this scenario also I have spoken to you with. So this is how we see the insurance as developed. And if you look at the insurance in India, that is the marine insurance in India, in fact the Britishers in India, just to govern out their colonies, that is just to look out into the British colonies, because they were the regular persons who used to trade in India. So in order to cover out the British colonies, there was a insurance sector was being brought in. The marine insurance was being recognized, and probably that could have led the tremendous factor on that of the insurance market in India, especially marine insurance in India. So they had their own form of insurance. The principles was applied, their own rules was applied in till the independence. But after the independence, my friends, the first marine insurance in India for the citizens or for the people of India was the Indian Marine Insurance Act of 1963. This was the first piece of legislation which still it is governing us, 1963 legislation, which came out for the governing of the marine insurances in India. This is the story of the marine insurance. Then comes the fire insurance. Of course, later on I will speak to you with the life insurance. See, if you go, how did this fire insurance come up with? See, after marine insurance, I can say the next most important or prominent insurance which was recognized is the fire insurance. That is, this concept of fire insurance was a result of the great fire that broke out in London in 1666. 1666. This was a outcome of the fire that was taken in London. And of course, they thought that as we should bring out certain law, we should frame out certain sectors of insurance in these areas. And somehow we did not do good till the 1861. Though it was in 1666, but till 1861, it was not, in fact, so materialized with. But in 1861, there was another breakage of fire that is called as Tooley Street Fire. Tooley Street Fire it is. So these two outbreak of fire, in fact, gave out a slogan calling upon saying that there is a need for an insurance in the area of fire. They said that, in fact, they wanted, by these two major tragedies which has been taken place in London, they called saying that no, we do require to have an insurance in the area of fire insurance. That is, to overcome with those disasters which is going to be caused by fire, they came out to have a fire insurance. And in this respect, my friends, they established a fire, what is that called? I mean, they established an office with a position calling it as Fire Officers Committee, and representatives of this Fire Officers Committee. The fire testing station, unlike now today we see fire testing station, fire extinguishing station, fire testing station was being brought in, that is in collaboration with that of the government department. And a part of this, the noteworthy development was that they also came out with the Joint Fire Research Association in 1946. This was in fact, this association gave out a way for a greater development in the area of fire insurance sector. In India, if you look upon with this, I can say you that the fire insurance business was always, is now even today to some extent I can say, it is always made through that of the brokers. And in any branches of, for that matter, the business was carried by the foreign companies, because we did not have our own business. In all those branches which we had in India at the beginning was with that of the companies, that is American company, or it could be with the Japan company or with the Britain company. We used to have a collaboration with these companies, and we used to have a fire insurance business. But when it comes to the first company in India with respect to the fire, was that Alliance British and Foreign Fire Insurance Company was the first company to come up with the fire insurance company, which was established in Madras. This was the first company to come up with, and we see that this mainly spoke upon, or it mainly addressed upon with the fire insurance. Soon after this, my friends, we see that is after the Alliance British and Fire Insurance Company. Soon after this company, we also see that there was one more company which had come up in India, was Royal Insurance Company Liverpool, which was a British company. In fact, it was this company started with a fire insurance in India. Then came out the Northern British Commission or Insurance Company had come up in India. So all these companies had come up in just providing a protection against the fire insurances. So this is the picture of how the fire insurance has developed. Next comes, this is an important area, life insurance, because I always see that this is asked for examination. They may ask you stating that, state the development of life insurance in India. So again I am repeating, you have to address upon these areas right from William Gibbons to the current day, what is the situation. So you have to explain. And here, how did the life insurance develop in India? Again, I have to run back to the position of England and come back to India. See, when it comes to the life insurance, my friends, though we say that in 1633, William Gibbons has come up and he has appealed to the Queen to take an insurance for his life, but the same, if you look at it in England scenario, there was a mutual life insurance that was prevalent in 17th century. And in fact, this mutual life insurance was for a very shorter period, maybe for 6 months or 1 year. Especially people who used to go for trade or outside countries or outside states, maybe in any manner, they were asked to take the life insurance for, that is, they were asked to take the insurance of life for them. And in fact, though it was very for a shorter period of time, these mutual insurance companies were working out with. But by passing the Bubble Act in 1720, you would have read under the company law also, by passing the Bubble Act of 1720, which got amended in the year 1825, it overtook and busted out all those companies. What I can say is that it de-recognized those companies, that is these mutual insurance companies. And only company which was allowed to go with the life insurance was, that is, Amicable Society, which was allowed to go with the life insurance sector. And in fact, this Amicable Society, excluding all those mutual insurances by the Bubble Act, when it was taken out, this Amicable Society in fact served in providing a life insurance business till from 1705 to 1757. For all these years it was there, and only we see that in 1807, my friends, the first charter was obtained. The permission was allowed by the charter to these amicable societies to carry upon the insurance business with the number of persons. That is, they can form with number of persons and they can proceed with conducting the life insurance business. In fact, I can say you this, apart of William Gibson, I am speaking to you with this. In fact, this amicable society came out with certain chart of the mortality table. Today we have a mortality table here. It says that what is the, when I say mortality table, what is the death rate of a person? In order to analyze the premium that is going to be paid to that of a person, that is what the company is going to take the risk, they have to prepare a mortality table. That is, what is the death of a person between the age of 5 to 20 or 5 to 15, and what is the death of a person between 5 to 45, and what is the death of persons from 50 to so and so. So there is a mortality table. So for the first time we see that a mortality table was required to be prepared on the in the area of life insurance business is concerned. And at the same era, I can say in the 17th century, we see that the concept of insurable interest had come in. Why I say the concept? Because today the question of insurable interest is most important in all the insurance sector. In all the insurance sector, and this was a boon from the 17th century, which, because till then it had become a gambling for the people to take an insurance in the name of other person. So there they said that yes, to have a check of these instances, that is, I cannot take an insurance for some third person as a stranger as such. I was speaking to you in my introductory discussion also, which said that if you want to have a policy in the name of some other person, then you should also have an insurable interest. And for having a check on this, my friends, the Life Assurance Act was being brought in the year 1774. In the year 1774, to have a check over the person who has an insurable interest, the act was being brought in. And in fact, by the enactment of this, it said that any joint stock company can come up with some principles, they can frame some principles among themselves in order to go with the life insurance policies as concerned. That is, they should have a scientific principles, they should adopt certain scientific principles in order to go with the insurance business concern. So in this way, my friends, the first time we can see that the protective legislation was being brought, and this was followed by the Act of 1867. It was followed, and this also did not do good enough, and it was replaced by the Act of 1909. As it did not do good, it was replaced by the Act of 1909, and later on, my friends, it was brought within the ambit of the Insurance Companies Act 1958. So in this way, we see that the life insurance slowly and gradually took out its development. And now today, if you look at with the life insurance, my friends, apart of the discussion what I had, this, though we say that life insurance is confined ordinarily to that of the life insurance, or it is confined to that of a life of a person, but now it has also extended even to that of the accident insurance also. How it is? See, if a person dies in the course of his accident, we normally say that it is not a life insurance concern. We used to say that it should be made under the general insurance. No, it said that if a person dies because of the accident, or because of certain industrial hazards that has been taken place, or because of some of the engineering or motor vehicles or aviation classes are concerned, it should be brought within the ambit of life insurance. That is, wherever the life is in question, wherever the life is being brought in the area, then that life could also be brought in whatever the manner it could be, whether it is by way of fire, the loss could be caused by fire, whether the loss could be of a marine, or whether the loss could be of an aviation, or whatever the reason it is, you can bring within the ambit of this. You can bring and say that it is within the ambit of the life insurance, and that has to be covered with. And in India, if you look upon with, the first life insurance was passed in the year 1871. That is, life insurance commenced in the year 1871, starting its office at Bombay, called as Bombay Mutual Life Assurance, followed by the Oriental Life Insurance Company. So these were the two companies which has come up in respect of life insurance, and there was a steady growth of this life insurance, that is from 1870, I can say. And they also in fact looked upon with to curb the evil practices, say to come out with all those evil practices. And like I was saying to you, especially one is insurable interest, there was an act brought in called as the Life Insurance Act, Indian Life Assurance Act 1912, which was passed in the lines of the England Insurance Companies Act. So it was passed in the lines just to come out the evil practices that was being followed, and the government was compelled to protect the Indian insurance sector. As I then said, because we say that 7% of the GDP is a contribution given by the insurance sector to the government, to the country. So to come out with this, in the year 1936, SC Sen committee was being brought in, and this committee was asked to investigate into the reports of the existing situation of life insurance concern. And after SC Sen's report in the year 1936, Mr. N. Sircar we call it as, a committee was being formed in this regard to have an uniform control over all the life insurances, and a draft bill was filed in the year 1937, and that's how, my friends, Insurance Act of 1938 was brought in. It was passed in order to have a complete control, the regulation in respect of the life insurance business is concerned. So why the government was felt was that huge amount is involved in this. As I said, it is 7% of the GDP is through this insurance. So huge amount is involved, and that requires a regulation to be made. And that's how, my friends, the first life insurance business was nationalized in the year 1956 by passing a Life Insurance Act of 1956, conferring an exclusive right. I was then saying you there was a monopoly given to LIC. That is, this conferred an exclusive privilege to carry the life insurance. LIC was given an exclusive privilege in India, except to the extent otherwise provided under this act. So that's what I said. Motor vehicle, aviation was also brought under the ambit, and said that if any person loses his life through any of these criteria, then the life insurance can come in, and the person should be compensated for his life. So this was the development which has been taken place in India. But again, my friends, we shall see that GIC was not within the ambit, and we shall see the first GIC was brought in, that is Emergency Act was brought in 1971, and finally an act was passed in the year 1972. But when it comes to LIC, my friends, I would always like to remember the decision given by the court, that is Asha Goyal versus LIC. It always remembers me back, where in this case, my friends, the court imposed the duties and laid down certain directive principles to this insurance constitution, and said that LIC and JIC were the two bodies which were governing the insurance business. And especially when it comes to the LIC, it said that LIC should not be considered to be as a commercial in nature. LIC being a statutory corporation which is formed under the statute, that is under the LIC Act of 1956, it said that it is being an authority of the government, that is under the state, or instrumentality of the state, it should act for the welfare of the benefit of society. That's what the beginning I came out with saying to you. So LIC should not be considered as a company which is come up for the for the purpose of profit, because as soon as I say the company, when the word company, if I am to come out with, we always say that it is for the benefit of the public, or it is for the benefit of, it is for the purpose of providing a profit to that of the members, and that should not be the scenario of this LIC. LIC should always be considered, it is a welfare one, it is a welfare company, and it should be always serving to that of the benefit of society, as unlike Bhagavati says with, that is Professor Bhagavati, he says that is when the company comes it is not just for a profit, but it should be a social institution. And that's what, when I remember with this, I do repeat again with this, that is LIC is something which has come up with the welfare of the society. That is, it should uphold the dignity of Article 12 of the Constitution, and it should promote the welfare of the society. So that's how we see. Now LIC and GIC has been made as a separate one, and it cannot be, that is, one cannot overemphasize with that of the another. It should be made as a separate one, and these days we shall see that number of institutions have come up with this, that is interacted with this. It could be ESIC, or it could be LIC, or GIC, SRTC. All this have come up in the area of the insurance sector. And as I then said, after the IRDA Act, as I was just mentioning to you, that is more particularly 2000. Now, entire LIC today is also been privatized, and you can come across with this. That is, life insurance is being taken out by the private company. It could be Ing Vaishya Life Assurance Company, or it could be Birla, or it could be HDFC or ICICI Life Insurance. All this, there are several insurance private companies have come in. Again, I like to remember you. Again, I like to repeat you stating this, that one entity, I might be an ICICI, that is, I might be an ICICI company which is carrying an insurance. Being an ICICI insurance company, I cannot carry both life and the other general insurances. When I carry both these two should be as a separate entity. It should be both these two should be as a separate company. Only then they might be having ICICI. That's why we say that when the company comes out with the insurance, it says that ICICI Life Insurance Corporation, they call it as a life insurance company, they call it as. Or when they call it as another insurance company, they would call it as life, that is not in, without having a word life to that, they may call it as general insurance company, ICICI general insurance companies. So in that way, as a separate legal entity, they are allowed to carry upon this insurances. So this is how, my friends, I can state to you with how this insurance has developed over a period of days, right from 2250 BC to the current area of 2000. We see number of changes have been taken place, and all these changes what has been brought has gave way for the development of insurance sector. The sole object of this is just to give out the best possible way for the betterment of the society and for the betterment of indemnifying to the people who have involved in the risk or who have incurred with the risk of what has occurred with. That is, wherever the uncertainties can come up with, so for the betterment of providing a suitable protection for that uncertainty, all this, in fact, all this development have gave way for this and said that it should be for indemnifying for the loss of the person which he would incur in. So this is what, my friends, when we speak with the history of insurance in India. As I then said to you, history could be asked in general, or more particularly history could be asked on a particular area itself. And if a particular area is asked, again I am repeating, you can quote with this and straight away get into the particular area of answering the question.